And as the hush of the world gathers around you, something stirs quietly beneath the surface of your awareness. It is not loud nor urgent, but it is unmistakable. A whisper not of the ears, but of the soul. You felt it before, perhaps in the stillness just before sleep, or in the silence after a tear has fallen. It is the voice that waits patiently, always waiting, for your return to the place within, where all things are spoken into being. And though it wears no form, it has power over all form. Though it speaks in stillness, it commands the storm. This is the voice of God, and it speaks most clearly when the veil of the senses is drawn aside. But few truly hear it, because few understand the sacred threshold of sleep. Most enter dreams as victims of the day, letting the mind replay its complaints, its lack, its confusion. But you are not most. You are beginning to remember. You are not the dreamer. You are the dreaming. And if you would hear the voice of God in your dream, if you would receive instruction, revelation, correction, or communion, not from a stranger in the sky, but from the infinite wisdom buried beneath your own consciousness, then you must do one thing first. You must decide, before sleep takes you, who you truly are, not who you were today, not what others expect you to be, not what your circumstances appear to dictate, but who you are in the end, the finished work, the fulfilled promise. For sleep is not an escape from the world, it is a return to the womb of creation. It is the holy temple, where your assumptions are made flesh. The impressions you carry into sleep do not vanish in the dark, they descend into the depth of being, and rise again as your world. This is why Scripture declares, "Be still, and know that I am God," not someday, not if you deserve it. Now, in stillness, in the silence just before you surrender to the night, can you feel the power of that moment? The body lies quiet, the senses begin to blur, and all that remains is you, and the thought you are clinging to. That thought becomes your seed. That seed becomes your life. If you carry into that sacred darkness the burden of being unloved, unnoticed, unfinished, then the dream will echo it, and the waking world will confirm it. But if you enter that hallowed place, wearing the feeling of the wish fulfilled, if you feel yourself already become that which you desire, then the dream will teach you, it will unfold you. It will speak to you not in riddles, but in perfect symbols of what is coming into being. For dreams are not chaos, they are communication, and every night you are writing letters to yourself, some written in fear, others in faith. And those letters become instructions, whispered back to you through the veil, but only when you have chosen your identity with reverence. You must lay aside the old garment before you enter the silence. You must choose to die to who you were, and live as who you now are, in imagination. This is why your inner conversation is the secret altar. It is here, in the privacy of your heart, that you speak the words the universe must obey, not because it listens to your lips, but because it listens to your assumption. Imagination is the voice of God in you, and you will hear him in your dream when your imagination is aligned with the truth of who you are, not the truth the world sees, the truth you decide to embody. It does not matter what has been. All that matters is what is impressed upon consciousness now. And so, as you lie down tonight, feel it, not as a future hope, but as a present knowing, not a striving, but a surrender. Feel what it is like to be the one you have always longed to become. Feel the warmth of the fulfilled desire. Feel the quiet confidence that needs no proof. And then let the body sleep. For now the seed is planted, and the dream will come not to distract, but to affirm, not to amuse, but to instruct. But there is something deeper still, something most overlooked in their practice, because the question is not only what you assume, but how you enter the silence. And this brings us to the mystery of divine receptivity, hidden in the moment, just before sleep wraps itself around your mind. And as the breath slows and the limbs grow heavy, you approach the most delicate passage in all of life, the crossing between the visible and the invisible. Most brush past this threshold without reverence, dragging the noise of the day into the sacred hush of the inner temple. But you, now aware, begin to sense the holiness of this moment. You are not merely falling asleep, you are descending into the Holy of Holies, into the secret place where God whispers back what you have dared to believe. This is not a place you earn with effort, it is entered through surrender, and it is here that the mystery of divine receptivity unfolds. For while most speak to God as though he were somewhere else, the wise understand, God is not distant. God is the silence into which you fall. God is the listener behind your final thought. And if your final thought is clear, embodied, and filled with the feeling of fulfillment, then the dream becomes the echo of God saying, "Yes, my child, it is so, but it must be felt, not forced." There is a stillness the world does not understand, a stillness that is not absence, but fullness. It is not empty space, it is presence undisturbed, and as you settle into the stillness, you are not alone. The moment you release the outer, the inner awakens. The kingdom of heaven is within you, not metaphorically, but experientially. You touch it every time you slip into the state between wakefulness and sleep with conscious surrender. This is why the ancients called it the bridal chamber. For in this sacred place, your assumption is wed to the infinite, and from that union comes birth, first as a dream, then as a day. Do not rush through this passage. Let it open, let it hold you. You are not here to beg for change. You are here to become it, not by grasping, but by yielding. The assumption you carry in this moment is not a petition, it is a decree, and the silence receives it like fertile soil receives a seed, with no question, no delay, only the pure law of becoming. What are you assuming as you let go? What identity do you sink into as your body drifts? This is the true offering, not the words spoken, but the feeling held. And if that feeling is one of completeness, if you rest tonight as the one who already is, already has, already knows, then the dream will rise like a mirror, revealing the hidden corridors of your own consciousness. You will walk through doors in sleep that you have never seen in waking life. You will speak to people you do not know, yet somehow recognize. You will be shown symbols that stir something ancient in you, because the dream does not invent, it reveals. It reveals the shape of your inner world, and that world is always formed first in the stillness before sleep. This is the sacred moment when the word becomes flesh, not by action, but by alignment. Let the weak say, "I am strong," not later, now. Let the barren soul say, "I am fruitful." Let the forgotten say, "I am chosen." And let it be said within, not shouted without. For what you whisper in the quiet, God will declare in the open. You have no need to struggle. The only true effort is to remember. Remember that you are already one with the source. Remember that what you feel is what you become. Remember that the dream is not some random flickering of the mind. It is the translation of your inner conviction. You may think you are waiting on the world to change, but the truth is always simpler, always closer. The world is waiting on you to change your tone of being, and it begins here, in the space between thoughts, just before sleep, when you no longer identify with the outer self, and you begin to feel the vibration of your divine identity rising quietly like dawn behind closed eyes. Do not force it, rest in it. Let the feeling of your fulfilled desire wrap around you like soft light. Let it fill the room of your inner sanctuary. Let it become your atmosphere. And as you do, the voice will come, not with thunder, not with flames, but with the gentle intimacy of a dream you recognize as more real than anything you've ever known. But there is a deeper key still, something few have noticed, hidden in the rhythm of your inner conversations as you drift into sleep's embrace. And as that warmth of fulfilled being settles deeper into your breath, something even subtler begins to emerge, not a new feeling, but a recognition. It is the faint but steady rhythm beneath all other sounds, your inner conversation, not the words of the day, nor the chatter of the surface mind, but the quiet stream that flows beneath every image and emotion you carry into sleep. This stream creates. It is the true author of your dream, and the sculptor of your world. You may not hear it aloud, but you always feel its tone. It is the background hum of who you believe yourself to be, and long before your dream forms its symbols, before you walk through celestial landscapes, or speak to the figures that rise from your own depths, it is this tone that decides what shall appear. Most never realize the power of these silent conversations, the ones that continue even as your lips grow still, but they are the prayer without posture, the decree without sound. And as you begin to drift into sleep, the gate opens, and they echo directly into the womb of the subconscious. What are you saying to yourself, in the silence no one else hears? Do you hear, "I am whole"? Do you feel, "I am already loved"? Or do old voices return, whispering lack in a familiar disguise? It matters, because God hears what you feel is true, not what you hope against, not what you plead to avoid, but what you accept in the silence. And so your inner dialogue is not a monologue, it is communion. You think you are speaking only to yourself, but every word is a seed laid on holy ground. If you carry the tone of regret, then the dream reflects sorrow. If you carry the rhythm of fear, then your nights become rehearsals of what you dread. But if you carry the fragrance of fulfillment, the softness of it is done, then the dream opens into prophecy, and what it shows you becomes the divine rehearsal of what must unfold. These are not fantasies, they are sacred blueprints, but the blueprint is always drawn in silence, by the hand of your assumption. There is no force needed, only awareness, only the gentle discipline of choosing the end over the evidence, the outcome over the outer noise. Do not try to fix what the day has shown you, that is not your role. Your only task is to assume differently, to carry into the silence a new inner word, to become so still in your chosen identity that the old voices fade into nothing. Let the inner conversation speak only from love, from strength, from the authority of the fulfilled, and do not wait for the feeling to come from outside. Speak as if you already are, and the feeling will follow. The mind obeys the tones you wear. You are always in conversation with God, not as a distant deity, but as the power that responds perfectly to your inner state. This is the mystery. Your every assumption is a prayer, your every acceptance is a command, and your dream will speak in the exact language of what you most consistently believe. Let your last thought tonight be clothed in grace. Let it wear the crown of fulfillment. Do not say, I hope it works. Say it is finished, not as a question, but as a knowing. And if the old voices return, voices of failure, of doubt, do not resist them. Simply turn your gaze inward and speak again, not louder, but truer. Say inwardly what you would hear if your desire were already fulfilled. Say it until it no longer feels strange. Say it until it feels inevitable. Then rest. The dream will take that tone and shape it. Not always literally, not always as you expect, but always truthfully, faithfully, as a mirror of your inner decree. And sometimes, what appears in the dream will be strange to your conscious mind. A face you do not know, a scene you've never walked, but feel beneath the image. Hear what it reveals through symbol, not speech. The language of dreams is not linear, it is poetic, it speaks in essence. And if you meet a stranger, who loves you unconditionally, or find yourself in a house you've never seen but instinctively know as home, pause. That is God, showing you what you've begun to believe. But what if the dream seems unsettling? What if it shows you a fear long buried? Then rejoice, for it has surfaced to be known, to be revised, to be transformed, because the dream is never against you, it is always revealing you. And this leads us deeper still, to the sacred act of revising even the dream itself, and rewriting the echoes that no longer serve your becoming. And as that dream unfolds, whether soft and luminous or shadowed and strange, it carries not judgment, but invitation. Invitation to remember what you are truly assuming beneath the words. For the dream speaks in symbol, not to punish, but to reveal. And what is revealed can be reformed. Even within the dream itself, you are never powerless. You are the writer dreaming he is lost inside his own script, forgetting for a moment that the ink was always in his hand. There is a sacred art, overlooked by most, known only to those who have dared to take full responsibility for their reality. It is the art of revision, not only of waking memory, but of the messages delivered in the hush of sleep. For if the dream is a reflection of your inner state, then it too is subject to the law of assumption, and what you revise in feeling becomes what you receive in form. Do not accept a nightmare as prophecy. Do not believe a sorrowful image must now come to pass. These are not warnings, they are invitations. They rise from the depths so that you may choose again, speak again, assume again from the highest. All things can be rewritten in the silence of your soul. If a dream shows you loss, dare to close your eyes again upon waking and revise it. See instead the symbol of restoration. Feel the joy of having what was lost return to you. If a dream shows rejection, revise it gently in imagination. See the arms open, hear the voice affirm, sense the warmth that was missing. You are not changing the past. You are changing its meaning, and meaning is what reality obeys. This is not fantasy. This is law, for the subconscious knows no time. It does not distinguish between what was, what is, and what you now imagine to be true. It accepts only what is vividly felt and persistently believed. And so to revise a dream is to redeem it. This is the forgiveness Christ spoke of, not sentiment, but transformation. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Forgive the image. Rewrite it in love. Give it back to God as whole, and it will return to you, healed. You need not fear what you dream, for if you understand the law, even the darkest night becomes fertile ground. What matters is not what appears, but how you interpret it. If a figure confronts you, bless it. It is only a mask worn by some part of you still waiting to be seen, still longing for integration. Speak peace to it. See it transformed. And if a dream ends with confusion or absence, do not awaken into doubt. Instead, fill in what was missing. Feel it as completed. Saturate the image with love, until it becomes harmonious, until the dream serves your end, not your fear. This is your dominion. You were never meant to be at the mercy of what rises in sleep. You were meant to govern it from within, not through will, but through alignment, through the quiet insistence that only love is real, that only wholeness is worthy of remembrance. And as you revise, the subconscious begins to shift. It takes your new image as gospel. It says, so this is who we are now, and it begins to organize the outer world to match. What once was sorrow becomes the seed of joy. What once was fear becomes the womb of courage. For nothing is wasted when you know how to rewrite. So the next time a dream leaves you trembling, remember this: it has risen not to bind you, but to be reseen, to be clothed in a better garment. And when you do this upon waking, when you revise with love and declare a new meaning, the dream begins to change. Not only the one you had last night, but the one you live inside every day. This is the grace of God in action, not abstract, but tangible, not distant, but as close as your next assumption. And yet, there is a still deeper mystery, one that unfolds not in the dream, and not even in its revision, but in the sacred moment when you enter the dream consciously, awake, aware, and able to choose within it. A hidden temple few ever enter, though all are invited. And as the veil between sleep and awareness thins, there lies a sacred passage rarely crossed with full remembrance. The moment you step into the dream, not as a wanderer, but as the creator, a lucid entry into the inner temple, where you are both the sculptor and the scene, the voice and the echo, the presence and the projection. Most brush past this gate, without knowing it. But once you awaken within the dream, something ancient stirs. You are no longer watching the symbols of assumption, you are walking among them. This is the deeper mystery, the conscious dream. It is not rare because it is difficult. It is rare because the world has forgotten its power, but you now, still in remembering, begin to feel its call. You've touched the silence before sleep. You've entered the womb of imagination with reverence. You've revised the broken echoes. And now, you begin to awaken while still dreaming. This moment is not chaos, it is communion, not illusion, but instruction. When you are aware in the dream, you are not bound by the past, nor the logic of the senses. You are standing in the raw, unformed clay of consciousness, with the full authority of the I Am still resting upon you. If in waking life you are conditioned by habit and memory, then in the dream you are conditioned only by belief. And belief here can be touched. It can be turned. It can be turned. It can be transformed. You do not need to manipulate the dream's images. That is shadow work. Instead, feel who you are within the dream. Choose your identity even there. For the one who is aware in sleep holds the key to the kingdom. Let the dream shift around you. Do not chase it. Let the scene bend, dissolve, reappear. Stay rooted in the feeling of I know who I am, and the dream will begin to harmonize with that tone. You may fly, you may speak and be answered instantly, you may see yourself as you have never dared to imagine. These are not tricks, they are mirrors. They show you what your inner world is ready to become, and perhaps more importantly, you will see the obstacles of the waking mind play themselves out. Old patterns, fears in costume, unfinished stories. But now you are not inside them, you are aware of them, and in that awareness you are free. For nothing you see in the dream has power over you unless you believe it. The moment you question its authority, it begins to dissolve. This is what it means to dwell in the secret place of the Most High. It is not found in a building or a ritual. It is found in the state of knowing, even while asleep, that you are the one who assumes, and therefore the one who creates. Scripture says, "Awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light." This is not a verse for the body, it is a verse for consciousness. For in the dream most are dead to their power, moving through symbols unaware. But when you awaken there, you rise, you remember, and the light reveals itself in the scene around you. What you assume here matters, but what you assume there, within the dream, is multiplied. It bypasses the resistance of the rational mind. It sinks instantly into the fertile ground of subconscious being. So enter softly, let the dream unfold, and if you find yourself aware, rejoice, for you have crossed into the Holy Land.
Not a place, but a state. Not a fantasy, but a furnace in which the new man is forged. Speak from love. Choose from wholeness. Let the symbols serve your becoming. You are not dreaming. You are dreaming, as God. And just as waking life reflects your assumptions delayed, the dream reflects them immediately. It is the purest rehearsal of your creation. But there is a whisper even deeper than this, a presence within the lucid dream that is not a thought, not a scene, but a being, a gentle watcher who is not separate from you, but more you than your waking self has ever dared to be. And as the dream bends and sways with your awareness, there comes a stillness deeper than the dream itself. It does not announce itself. It does not speak in words or images. It is simply there, a quiet presence watching, loving, radiating without force. You do not see it with your dream eyes, but you know it is you, a greater you, the eternal one behind all masks. This is not imagination creating form. This is the source from which imagination itself arises. And when you become aware of this presence in your dream, or even in the silence of near sleep, you are touching the most sacred truth. God is not a character. God is awareness itself. And awareness, clothed in feeling, is what becomes flesh. Most believe that God visits them in dreams. But the deeper revelation is this: God is the dreamer. God is the one who watches the dream unfold within you, through you as you. This presence does not intervene by force. It waits for your agreement. It speaks only through the medium of assumption. It does not command from outside. It answers within. You are not waiting on a divine voice. You are being invited to become the divine voice. The more you rest in this presence, this knowing awareness, the more the dream loses its frantic symbols, and begins to take on the softness of love. Scenes shift, yes. People may come and go, but the presence remains. It is the same presence that watches you now, even in waking. The one who has seen every version of your story, and still holds you in perfect love. When you recognize this in your dream, you will not need to perform. You will not feel lost. You will feel carried. Because you will have remembered the truth. Nothing is more intimate than the God within. He does not need to shout. He does not need to explain. His language is being. And when you surrender to this still, radiant center, the dream itself becomes transparent. You begin to see through the image, into essence. Every symbol glows with meaning. Every moment is ripe with instruction, not through effort, but through resonance. You may hear a voice speak your name in that place, not a voice from outside, but a vibration from the depths of your soul. It will not call you as the world does. It will call you as you truly are. And when it does, you will know that you have not been separate. You have not been lost. You have only been asleep to your origin. This presence within the dream is the very breath of I am. It is not personal, yet it becomes personal as you claim it. It does not favor, yet it blesses when you align, and it always speaks through assumption. So listen not with your ears, but with your being. Hear the voice not in words, but in felt truth. When the dream is veiled in darkness, this presence is light. When the images grow confusing, this presence remains clarity. When the self feels small, this presence is infinite. You are never without guidance. You are never without power, for the voice of God is not coming to visit. It is waiting to awaken, and it awakens the moment you feel, I am that. Not with striving, not with noise, but with the gentle, fearless surrender into identity. You do not need to wait for a dream to speak. The presence is always speaking, but dreams make it visible, symbolic, undeniable. When you dwell in this awareness, even for a moment, something shifts in you. The assumptions of lack, of distance, of unworthiness, begin to fall away, not because they are argued with, but because they no longer fit. You outgrow them in silence, and then something remarkable begins to happen, not only in sleep, but in waking life. The people around you respond differently. Circumstances reconfigure. The world begins to act as if it knows who you are, not because the world changed, but because you did. You no longer beg for signs, you become the sign. But this transformation deepens when you realize the dream is not limited to night, nor is waking life so separate from it. In fact, the boundary between waking and dreaming is thinner than you've ever imagined.
And as the stillness of that eternal presence lingers within you, something soft but startling begins to dawn. The dream and the waking are not opposites. They are reflections, two currents within the same ocean of consciousness. You do not cross from one into the other as into different worlds. You shift states within the same divine field. What you call sleep is not the departure of awareness, but its redirection. What you call waking is not full perception, but agreement with a narrower rhythm. The line between the two is not a wall, it is a veil. And that veil is drawn not by time or brainwaves, but by assumption. You have believed waking life to be solid, fixed, governed by facts. You have called the dream vague, symbolic, unreal. But the truth, quietly waiting beneath these labels, is that both are crafted by the same law. Both rise from the seedbed of your accepted identity. Both bend toward the shape of your inner conversations. And so, what you rehearse in the dream, you soon enact in waking, and what you persist in feeling throughout your day, you carry into the night to be amplified, mirrored, returned. This is the rhythm of creation. Day into night, night into day, image into form, form into remembrance. If you understand this, you are no longer a visitor in either world. You are the bridge, the lampstand upon which light rests and through which it shines. You begin to see that the assumptions you drop into the well of night will rise again through the gate of dawn, not because the universe is responding, but because you are remembering. And when the waking world begins to echo what your dream has whispered, you do not call it a sign, you call it a harvest. What you see with open eyes is no more real than what you see behind closed lids. Both are real to the degree you feel them. Both are sustained by the same root, your state of being. According to your faith be it unto you, not according to your effort, or your logic, or your history, but according to the felt agreement between your imagination and your identity. You could dream of healing and wake whole. You could dream of love and wake in its embrace. You could dream of being forgiven and wake free from the chains you didn't even know you wore. Why? Because both the dream and the day are clothes worn by consciousness, and you are that consciousness, shaping all by the word you speak within. So why wait for the world to change, when the substance of it flows from your inner tone? Let this realization wash over you gently. Feel the veil becoming thin, not just at night, but even now. Every assumption you hold is already writing your next scene, whether you call it sleep or waking. And if you live the day from the end, as if your prayer were already answered, then the night becomes confirmation. Your dream no longer compensates for lack, it celebrates the arrival. And the presence that once felt so distant becomes the very breath that moves with you through both realms. Begin to treat your entire life as a dream already dreamed, not in fantasy, but in divine confidence. Feel what it would be like to move through this waking world as the one who has already received. Let the conversation within reflect that. You are not becoming, you are being. And from that being, everything flows. The figures you meet, the circumstances that unfold, the surprises that arrive without effort, all are drawn to match your inward agreement. They cannot help it. This is not personal preference. This is universal law, and it responds with perfect precision to the dreamer who knows they are dreaming. But there is still one sacred tool, hidden in plain sight, that few ever use in the way it was given. It is not the act of imagining itself, but the mood you wrap around the image, the feeling of naturalness, the holy oil that sanctifies the assumption and makes it flesh. And as that truth settles within you, that both night and day arise from the same root, you begin to feel for something subtler still, something not spoken in language, but woven into every fulfilled desire, the feeling of naturalness, that sacred ease, that quiet knowing, when what was once longed for no longer feels distant, but already yours, not earned, not chased, simply natural, inevitable, done. This is the holy oil, the anointing that transforms a mere wish into a living reality. You may imagine riches, but if it feels unnatural to be wealthy, the image fades like mist. You may picture love, but if it feels foreign to be cherished, the dream cannot hold. For the law does not respond to fantasy, it responds to naturalness, to what you have accepted into your inner climate as real. And this is why many visualize, yet see no change, because their image is dressed in effort, not ease. It is visited like a stranger, not worn like a second skin. But when an assumption becomes natural, the dream cannot help but mirror it. The world cannot help but reflect it. The feeling of naturalness is the soil in which all things grow. You do not need to make the feeling happen. You need only dwell in it long enough for it to soften you. Let it wrap around your imagination until it fits like breath, until you forget it was ever new. How do you know you've reached it? There is no fanfare, no lightning, only rest. The image no longer feels like pretending, it feels like remembering. This is the Sabbath of consciousness, not a day, but a state, a sacred pause in which striving ceases and fulfillment is accepted as now. And in that rest, the seed is planted, and in that rest, God speaks, not through thunder, but through the still assurance of being. When Scripture says, "You shall anoint the most holy," it points to this mystery. To anoint is to saturate, and to saturate the assumption with naturalness is to make it holy, to set it apart as real in the eyes of consciousness. You need not beg the dream to change. You need not explain to the subconscious why it should obey. You need only carry yourself into sleep already anointed with the mood of the fulfilled. It is not about emotion, it is about tone. Even a whisper, if spoken in the right tone, moves the mountains of circumstance. Let that tone be the one you fall asleep in. Let your final thoughts before the descent into sleep be clothed in familiarity, not desire, but doneness, not hope, but habitation. This is why inner conversations are more powerful than spoken affirmations, because they reveal your true tone. They show whether your imagined reality has become natural, or if it is still a stranger to your nervous system. Talk to yourself as the one who already is, not to convince, but to commune. Let your own voice reflect the ease of the answer, and if your body still tenses at the image, if the blessing still feels too good, do not resist, stay with it, return to it, soften into it like you would into warm water. Let it take you until it feels ordinary, because when it feels ordinary, it becomes inevitable. The dream does not argue with logic, it reflects acceptance. Waking life does not debate what you deserve, it brings you what you've normalized. So let the beauty of what you seek become as normal as breath. Let the riches feel as usual as your own hands. Let the love feel as familiar as your name. This is how you are heard. This is how the unseen moves, not by force, but by frequency. And if you can carry that frequency just long enough, just through the veil of sleep, it will be impressed. And what is impressed must express. But what if you wake and the world still looks the same? What if the echo has not yet reached your outer shore? That too is part of the mystery. For delay is not denial, but a sacred space in which your faith is polished, and your identity is sealed. And as the outer world rises to greet your morning eyes unchanged, it is here that the true test begins, not a test of strength, but of steadiness. For many fall from grace, not because they lack vision, but because they abandon the assumption when the mirror delays its reflection. But you are learning to rest deeper, to trust longer, to see beyond the veil of appearances, and hold fast to the unseen. This is where the soul is tempered. For the moment of delay is not a punishment, it is a preparation. It is the hush before the echo returns, the silent phase, where the seed already planted draws invisible roots beneath the soil. Nothing is wrong, nothing is missing. The feeling has gone before you, and life is catching up. But can you remain faithful, not to the image itself, but to the identity behind it? Can you continue to carry the tone of the fulfilled, even while the outer seems to contradict? This is not denial, this is dominion. You are not asked to pretend, you are asked to remember that what you felt before sleep was not fantasy, but command, that your dream was not indulgence, but prophecy, that the mood you now maintain is more powerful than the evidence you temporarily lack. Hold it gently. This is where many undo their own work. By looking to the outer world too soon for validation, they withdraw the naturalness of their assumption. They return to the old self, thinking the dream has failed, when in truth, it was about to ripen. Every delay is a sacred pause, not in the law, but in you, a space for your conviction to deepen, for your new identity to settle so firmly, that when the echo comes, it finds you unmoved. The outer world is not resisting you, it is adjusting to meet the new vibration you've become. And this waiting is not passive, it is creative, it is gestation. Just as a child in the womb does not arrive the moment the seed is sown, your manifested dream requires incubation within the quiet chamber of your faith. Let this period refine you. Speak to yourself not as the one who waits, but as the one who remembers. Revisit the tone, return to the naturalness, re-enter the dream not to get, but to feel again what is already done. You are not dependent on the world's timeline. You are dependent only upon your own agreement. Agreement with what?
with your highest assumption, with your truest self, with the whisper you heard in the dream, the presence you felt in the silence, the vision that wrapped you like light just before sleep. This is how the promise is kept, not by watching, but by embodying. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not delay. But the waiting spoken of here is not sitting in lack, it is standing in truth. It is walking each step, as if the unseen is already walking with you, because it is. You are not asking God to act. You are allowing your state to call what has always been yours into view. So when the world shows you the old story, bless it. Do not argue. Do not panic. Let it pass. It is only the fading echo of who you once believed you were, and you now anchored in the new, need not respond. And when the dream of sleep returns, and it will, you will find that it too has changed. It will no longer be a place of longing, or rehearsal, or conflict. It will be a realm of confirmation. It will become the sacred theater, where your assumption is performed in symbol and peace. The voice of God, which once seemed distant, will speak to you plainly, not with commandments, but with embodiment. The dream will not teach you to become, it will remind you that you are. But this sacred reminder becomes permanent, only when you learn to live the day from the dream's conclusion. And now, you are ready for what few have touched, the art of moving through waking life in the same state you enter your dreams. And as the dream softens into waking, the question arises, not from thought, but from being. Can you walk through this day, in the same certainty with which you drifted into sleep? Can you carry that quiet knowing, that felt conclusion, like a flame hidden in the folds of your heart? This is the secret few ever uncover, that the state you embody before sleep is not meant to vanish with the sun. It is meant to become the sun that lights your every hour. You are not meant to wake as someone else. The identity you assumed in the silence is still yours. It does not disappear when the world knocks. It deepens when you respond to the world, as if you are already fulfilled. For the dream was never meant to remain behind your eyelids. It was meant to be walked. And you walk it not by trying to recreate it, but by feeling its mood, and letting that mood choose your responses. Every moment in the waking world becomes an echo of what you already accepted as true. This is the art of living from the end, not just imagining it in stillness, but flowing through life with the tone of its reality, not chasing outcomes, but expressing from identity, not reacting to appearances, but responding from vision. You move through your world now as the one who already is, and this changes everything. You will speak differently, though no one told you to. You will make decisions from peace, not from panic. You will say no without fear, and yes without striving, because you no longer need to get. You have already received. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. You are not pretending. You are participating in the deeper truth the dream revealed, and the waking life confirms for those who do not forget. And what does it mean to not forget? It means you do not allow the senses to dictate your state. You do not allow delay to rewrite your identity. You keep the rhythm of your inner world steady, even as the outer catches up. It means your day becomes a sacred extension of your night. Your speech becomes prophecy. Your movement becomes prayer. And in this state, miracles feel ordinary, not because they are small, but because they are expected. Because you have already seen them, felt them, become them in the silence. The difference is subtle, but absolute. Before you were hoping, now you are embodying. Before you were trying, now you are remembering. You speak not to convince, but to affirm. You act not to make something happen, but because something has happened within. This is why those who dwell in this knowing are called blessed. They need no evidence to believe. Their belief is the evidence, and it is from that evidence that all things are added. Therefore I say unto you, whatsoever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them, not later. Now, the receiving is not after, it is simultaneous with the believing. The having is merely the unfolding of what already is. So you walk, not toward your vision, but as your vision. You meet the day not with question, but with quiet gratitude. You smile at delays. You bless what appears broken. You feel no need to prove, because your life is the proof. And when night returns, it finds you faithful, not anxious, not striving, but resting again in the arms of the self you never left. You lie down as the one you rose as. You return to the inner sanctuary, not to beg, but to commune, to reaffirm what is already done. And the dream responds, deeper, clearer, closer, because the gap is gone, the bridge is built. You are not oscillating between two selves, you are dwelling in one true self, expressed in both realms. But to sustain this walk, there is yet another doorway to open, the sacred act of imagining, not just outcomes, but others as already transformed. And as you walk through the waking world, clothed in the remembrance of your fulfilled self, there comes a moment, a quiet nudge, a sacred expansion, when your gaze begins to shift outward, not to search, not to evaluate, but to bless. For the dream was never yours alone, and the power you have used to assume your own identity can now be turned, gently and lovingly, toward others, not to change them by force, but to see them anew. This is the deeper grace, to behold your brother not as he appears, but as he is in truth, to imagine him not in his struggle, not in his fault, but in his fullness, not as he was yesterday, but as he is in the end. And in doing so you draw that version nearer, not only in your dream, but in his reality. This is the unseen gift. When you revise another in love, the echo finds its way back to them. When you see them clothed in wisdom, health, peace, they begin to feel it, not because you said it aloud, but because your assumption has become their invitation. The law does not stop at your skin. Consciousness has no boundary. The dream of separation is just that, a dream. In truth, there is only one being, appearing as many. And when you imagine rightly for another, you imagine for the whole. This is why Christ said, "Whatsoever you would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them," not as morality, but as law. For what you hold true of another, you hold true of yourself. What you believe of them, you breathe into the field of life. And when you dream of another healed, they may wake with clarity. When you revise a conflict, and see only peace, the relationship begins to bend toward harmony. You need not speak, you need not correct, you need only assume the highest, and hold it as natural, not as fantasy, but as memory. See them in their divine completion, not to fix them, but to free them, not to interfere, but to remember on their behalf. Even the stranger on the street, even the one who hurt you, especially the one you cannot understand, if you dare to dream them awake, they begin to stir. And if you carry that vision into the silence of sleep, if you fall into the inner temple with your brother made whole in your heart, you will be shown in dreams what words could never say. You will see the healed version before it appears in time. You will touch the harmony beneath the surface of their actions, and in that vision, you will remember the oneness that was never broken. To love is to imagine rightly, to forgive is to see beyond the shadow, to uplift is to hold someone in your heart, as if the dream has already come true. Do not wait for them to ask. Do not wait for them to deserve it. That is the old world's law. But the law of assumption obeys what you claim, not what they prove. So claim the highest, not once, but until it feels inevitable. And when you see them again, whether in waking or sleep, do not look for signs. Look through the veil. Look with the eyes of the fulfilled. Speak to them inwardly, as if they already know who they are. Assume the answer has already reached them. This is not fantasy. This is power, and it is the same power that shaped your own becoming. You need not understand how the transformation happens. That is not your work. Your only task is to remain in the state where their healing feels natural to you. Hold the image steady, and the dream will begin to include them. Hold it through the days, and life will rearrange itself. But there is one more doorway to pass through in this sacred unfolding, the threshold where all inner effort dissolves, and you no longer imagine, but become still, and remember that the dreamer and the dreamed are one. And as you hold another in your heart, not as they seem, but as they are in truth, a gentle unraveling begins. The sense of separation that once felt so concrete starts to dissolve. You no longer imagine for them as a giver to a receiver, or a healer to the wounded. You begin to feel something deeper, something quieter, that you are not simply blessing another, you are beholding yourself in another form. You are not lifting them up, you are lifting you in the only place that ever needed lifting, consciousness. The dreamer and the dreamed are one, the image and the imaginer, the voice and the echo, the figure in sleep and the one watching the sleep, all arise from the same source. And when that source is remembered, effort ceases. You need no longer adjust the dream, for you are aware of what births it. You need not manipulate the scene, for you recognize the self who creates it. This is the sacred silence into which all images fall, the holy stillness before assumption, before thought, where nothing is yet formed, and yet all is possible. You have lived long under the spell of form. You have tried to shape it, change it, fix it. But now you begin to feel for the root, that beneath every desire is not a thing to gain, but a self to remember. Beneath the longing for love is the self who is already one with love. Beneath the yearning for freedom is the self who is never bound. And when you return to this stillness, not as a seeker, but as the presence itself, the game changes. You stop dreaming of outcomes, and you start waking into being. You stop asking the dream to show you signs, and you start resting in the knowing that you are the sign, the light, the life. This stillness cannot be forced. It reveals itself when you stop grasping, when you let the imagined be enough, when you no longer try to bring it into form, but dwell in it as if it never left. In this place, God does not speak with words. God is the silence itself. It is not the silence of emptiness. It is the silence of fullness too vast for sound, the knowing that needs no voice, no proof, the peace that surpasses understanding, because it was never part of understanding to begin with. It is the home before the world began. This is the moment where assumption turns into identity, where dreaming turns into being, where the lamp no longer shines for you, it shines as you. And in this stillness, you see your dream not as something to be fulfilled, but as something already fulfilled in essence, already known, already you. You are not far from it. You are not waiting for it. You are awakening from the idea that there was ever anything to get. And when you sleep in this knowing, the dream may come, or it may not. The symbol may arrive, or it may remain quiet. But none of it matters anymore, for you have found the source, and the source is enough. When the dream is no longer your evidence, peace arises. When the manifestation is no longer your goal, truth abides. And in that holy detachment, the world yields to you, not because you demanded it, but because you no longer need it to prove what you already are. You lie down at night, not to escape, not to search, but to rest in your own being. And what comes is not a message, not a voice, but a vibration of completeness that cradles you as sleep overtakes the senses. The dream may open softly, or it may pass like a blank scroll. Either way, you are not disturbed, you are not moved, because you are home. But there is still a mystery that remains hidden to most, not because it is far, but because it is always present. A mystery that begins not in imagination, nor in revision, but in the first and final declaration of every creation, I am. And to truly know what this means, is to remember how God dreams through you.
And as that silence deepens, as the echo fades and the mind becomes still, only one thing remains, one truth, vast enough to contain all dreams, all symbols, all forms. I am, not a thought, not an affirmation, but the root of all being, the name of God in you, the eternal declaration that precedes every creation and outlives every world. Before you asked, it was I am. Before you desired, it was I am. Before form rose and fell, and rose again, there was only this pure wordless presence. This is the beginning of all dreaming. This is where God dreams you into being. You were not born of biology. You were born of awareness, assuming form. And that awareness, pure and formless, took the name I am, and whispered itself into the fabric of imagination. Every identity you've worn, every desire you've held, every path you've walked, has arisen from this silent flame. You did not imagine for fun. You imagined because it is your nature. To imagine is to be, and to imagine consciously is to return to the throne of creation. This is what the dream has always been trying to show you. Not that God is out there, but that God is your awareness of being, that the very one seeking is the sought. Moses asked, "Who shall I say sent me?" And the answer thundered not from a mountain, but from within. I am that I am, not I was, not I will be. I am, present, rooted, self-sufficient. And so when you say within yourself, I am rich, I am loved, I am free, you are not making a request. You are claiming the only truth the universe responds to: identity, being, state. No one needs to hear you speak it. It need not pass your lips. It need only saturate your silence. You are not drawing anything to you. You are revealing what was always there, awaiting your assumption of it. The moment you say I am, The structure begins to form. The dream begins to stir. The mirror begins to shift. The mirror begins to shift. But most dilute the name. They follow I am with contradiction. They say I am tired, I am broken, I am waiting, and they wonder why the world confirms their bondage. You are always using the name, but are you using it consciously? Let your I am be sacred. Let it be clean, quiet and sure. Not shouted, not repeated in desperation, but felt, rested in, lived from. And if you lie down tonight with nothing but this breath of being, this flame of I am, you will hear the voice of God in your dream, because you are the voice. The dream is only what that voice has assumed to be true. If you close your eyes and enter the silence with no image, no story, no plea, only I am, then what rises next is holy. It is not born of craving, but of fullness. And that fullness writes the dream. That fullness writes the life. You may be shown a scene, you may meet a figure, or you may feel only peace, thick and still and golden. But in all of it, the message is the same. You are not becoming worthy. You are remembering worth. You are not manifesting love. You are releasing the lie that it was ever missing. This is the sacred sleep of the soul, the rest into which the dreamer surrenders identity, not to escape, but to awaken. So let go of questions, let go of results, let go of all the layers, and return to this simple knowing. I am. Say it gently. Say it without words. Say it until it no longer feels like something you speak, but something you are. And from this state, all things are added. But there is still more to see. For if I am is the root of all assumption, then what you attach to it becomes your entire world. Which means, even your deepest desires are not truly about having, but about claiming who you already are, in disguise. And as the stillness of I am begins to saturate your inner atmosphere, something quiet yet extraordinary unfolds. You start to see your desires not as things apart from you, not as distant goals to chase or wait for, but as veiled identities, each one a reflection of who you are already being invited to become. You begin to understand, the desire itself is never about getting, it is always about being. What you long for is not the object, but the version of yourself who already has no need to long. The desire for love is the echo of the self who is love. The desire for freedom is the song of the self who has never been bound. The desire for peace is not a reaching, but a remembering, a whisper from the deeper you, calling you back to where you've never left. And if you meet the desire, not with striving but with reverence, it becomes your teacher. It no longer torments you, it transforms you. Let it show you who you really are. You do not want money. You want to feel the security that comes from knowing you are supported. You do not want the relationship. You want to dwell in the self who knows they are already chosen. You do not want health merely to escape pain. You want to return to the form of wholeness that was always your inheritance. This is why the law does not respond to wanting, but to being. The clearer you become in identity, the faster the shadows fall into place. Not because you chased them into position, but because your tone of being summoned them silently, precisely, and without resistance. Feel into your desires tonight, not to fulfill them, but to feel what they are pointing you toward. Who do you become in the end of that wish? What does the fulfilled version of you sound like? How does that self move? How does that self breathe? Do not reach for it, rest in it. Let the feeling of the end wrap around you, not as something to activate, but as something to inhabit. And as you do, the desire becomes soft, not weaker, truer, no longer outside of you, but returning home, claimed at last. This is the mystery of manifestation. Nothing comes to you, everything comes from you. Even the dream you call night is not delivered to you, it rises through you, painted by the tones you carry into the silence. And if you carry the tone of having, the feeling of already being, the dream becomes your mirror, your rehearsal, your confirmation. You may see yourself in scenes you've never known, yet feel as though you've lived them forever. You may walk through moments your waking mind cannot comprehend, but your spirit knows intimately. That is the language of the fulfilled self speaking back to you, saying, "This is who I am." Do not analyze it. Let it imprint you. Let it draw you forward. And when you rise, carry that same tone with you. Do not ask the world to match it. Be the one who holds it steady, until the world has no choice but to reflect. This is not force. This is faith. not blind belief, but embodied knowing. For every time you feel a true desire, you are being called to claim an identity. The thing itself is secondary. The identity is the source, and what you assume to be true of yourself, quietly, consistently, without effort, must be expressed. It is the law. It is always the law. So as you lie down in the stillness tonight, say not I want, say not I hope. Let those garments fall away. Instead feel the self who already is. Wear the end like skin. Let it be natural, soft, sure. And in that feeling, sleep will cradle you, not as one who is waiting, but as one who has remembered. But before you surrender fully into that sacred sleep, there is one final inner gate to pass through, the gate of no identity at all, the formless self before all labels, where even your highest assumption dissolves into pure being. And as the garments of desire fall gently from the soul, as even the most exalted assumptions are laid down like folded robes at the edge of the holy, something deeper begins to move within you, a stillness untouched by name, image, or form, a vastness behind all roles, all stories, even the divine ones. Not the healer, not the beloved, not the fulfilled, but that which knows them all, and needs none. The formless self, the pure awareness from which every identity once bloomed. It does not strive, it does not reach, it simply is. And in this space, there is nothing to claim, for there is no lack, nothing to become, for there is no beginning. It is not absence, it is presence before the world was framed. Here, even the sacred words fall away. No longer I am this, not even I am that, just, I am, and then, not even that, only the silence that speaks in light. This is the final threshold of the dream, the place few visit, not because it is far, but because it is so close, so immediate, so simple. The mind passes over it in search of something more adorned. But those who enter it need nothing else, for they have touched the root of all becoming. In this formlessness, the dream loses its edges, the mind no longer shapes, the breath dissolves into the field. You do not imagine here, you are imagination, before it had content. And this is where God speaks most clearly, not through voice, but through being, not through symbol, but through saturation, a fullness so complete, there is no room for longing, only the golden hum of absolute awareness. This is the place where the veil thins completely, where sleep becomes the temple, and your soul remembers what it has always known, that all is one, and that one is you. You are not dreaming to change reality. You are dreaming because it is your nature to create. You are not assuming to get. You are assuming to awaken. And when even assumption dissolves, what remains is the real, unchanging, eternal still. Let yourself drop into that stillness now. Feel the weightlessness of identity falling away. Feel the quiet beneath all doing, the warmth behind all light. You do not need to hold the vision anymore. The vision has held you. You do not need to fix the feeling. The feeling has become the air. You do not need to remember who you are. You have become the remembering itself. And when you sleep in this state, the dream does not arrive to instruct or mirror. It arrives to rest with you. It becomes gentle, slow, holy, not a stage, but a sanctuary. You may see nothing. You may drift in silence, but the silence will be filled with presence. You may awaken without a dream, but you will carry the vibration of something ancient and alive within your chest. This is where all the teachings begin and end, not with technique, but with stillness, not with images, but with essence. And when you rise from this place, when the world returns to its familiar shapes, you will find that everything feels softer, faces seem brighter, the body feels lighter, not because the outer changed, but because you remembered the changeless. This is the most powerful state you can carry into the day, not the doing, but the being. And if you learn to sleep here often, the dream will no longer be separate from life. It will merge, it will walk with you, and you will begin to feel, not only that God speaks in your dream, but that you are God's dream, awakening, again and again. And there is still a tenderness, waiting to be touched, a sacred rhythm in how the unseen becomes seen, how the felt becomes form, and how every true desire quietly fulfills itself, through faith alone. And as the quiet of formlessness enfolds you, a new kind of movement begins, not action, not choice, but the unfolding of what was already finished. There is no striving here, no grasping, only the gentle rhythm of faith, revealing itself in form.
For what was sown in stillness must bloom. What was claimed in silence must take shape, not because you commanded, but because you believed. Faith is not hoping, it is not waiting, it is the deep sacred certainty that what you have seen in the Spirit is already alive, already yours, already complete. And so the dream you enter tonight, whether filled with golden scenes or painted in pure stillness, does not need to prove anything to you. Its purpose is not to persuade, its purpose is to confirm. Faith is its own evidence. You do not need to see the garden to know the seed was planted. You do not need to trace the wind to know the air has moved. And in the same way, you do not need immediate confirmation in the outer world to remain anchored in your assumption. You are not watching for signs, you are walking in the fulfillment. This is the difference between hoping for change and living from change, between imagining as an effort and imagining as a natural extension of who you are. You believed, and it is so, and yet something more tender still emerges here. For faith is not loud, it does not boast, it does not cry out in fear when the winds rise. It rests like a child in its mother's arms. It moves not to prove, but because it knows. To the world this kind of faith appears foolish. It is too calm, too still, too sure. But the one who carries it has already seen the end. They walk through shadows with light behind their eyes. They speak not to convince others, but to commune with what is already unfolding. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It is not blind, it is the clearest vision you will ever know. And when you lie down in faith, your dream becomes a living scroll, revealing not what might be but what is, in the language of symbol, atmosphere and presence. Sometimes it will speak in images, sometimes it will speak in nothing at all. But what it gives is always enough, because faith receives without needing to explain. Feel now how different this is from waiting. You are not postponing joy. You are not checking to see if the law is working. You are abiding in the truth that it never fails. This knowing becomes your atmosphere. You smile when nothing has changed, because you have. You give thanks before it appears, because you know it must. You walk through the same street, the same job, the same room, but now you carry the vibration of something invisible yet inevitable, and slowly, gently, the world begins to echo it. A word here, a gesture there, a shift in timing, a softening in someone's tone. The outer world begins to rearrange itself, not to create the blessing, but to reveal it. And it happens not by force, but by fidelity. You stayed, you believed. You did not let the silence make you doubt. You let the silence deepen your roots. And now what once felt like a dream becomes your daily bread. But do not rush it. Do not measure it. Let the promise fulfill itself in its own perfect way. Some things arrive quietly, some come suddenly, some rise so slowly you do not notice, until one day, you look back and see a life transformed. This is the way of faith. So as you close your eyes tonight, rest in that rhythm. Let the dream come to you like breath. Let it unfold not to impress, but to affirm. And if it shows you a future, give thanks. And if it shows you nothing, give thanks just the same. For faith has already spoken, and what it declared in silence must echo in time. There is one final mystery, waiting now on the edge of your awareness, the sacred realization that you are the Word made flesh, and the world you dream is the garment of your own unseen speech. And as the hush of faith continues to deepen around you, something luminous begins to stir behind the quiet, a revelation not spoken in words, but in being. You begin to feel, not just understand, that you are the Word made flesh, that every image you've ever entertained, every assumption you've ever sustained, was not idle thought, but living seed. And the world around you, this stage you call reality, is clothed in those seeds made visible. The dream you walk through by day, and the one you drift into by night, are stitched from the same substance, your inner word. What you continually accept as true, about yourself, about life, about others, gathers form like dew on the canvas of time. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and that Word has become you. The invisible has taken on skin, the imagined has become the remembered, the thought has become the garment, and now you wear the evidence of what you've spoken in silence. This is not metaphor, this is law, and law is never deceived. You do not speak creation with your mouth alone, you speak with your assumptions, your tone, your dwelling state, and the universe answers, not to what you say once, but to what you feel continually to be true. The clothes you wear, the people you meet, the doors that open or close, all of them are the expression of your internal decree. You are not hoping the world will shift. The world is echoing what you already believe you are. And when you know this, truly know, it becomes impossible to blame, impossible to strive, impossible to fear, because you are the operant power, not just of one desire, but of your entire life. Even your dreams begin to change. They no longer arrive as strangers bearing messages. They arrive as beloved confirmations, living reminders that your inner speech has not gone unheard. You may find yourself in places you've never visited, yet feel strangely at home. You may see someone you love in a new light, whole, radiant, redeemed and awakened to find they've changed without cause. You may experience scenes so vivid, so tender, that they remain with you for days, not because they're predicting the future, but because they are revealing what has already been accepted as real. Your subconscious is not passive, it is precise. It listens to the mood beneath your words, the truth beneath your pretending, the state you return to again and again, especially in the quiet hour before sleep. And then it speaks back, in dream, in symbol, in form. But behind it all, there is only one speaker. You are not the echo, you are the voice. And when you align your voice with the highest truth, when you speak, feel, and live as one who already is what they once sought, everything around you begins to rearrange itself to match the word you've become. This is the path of the awakened dreamer, not to manipulate reality, but to embody truth, not to make things happen, but to become the self to whom they already have. Let this truth settle in you like incense in a still room. You are not behind, you are not lost, you are not separate from the dream you long to live. You are the dream dreaming itself into visibility. So speak not as the one who needs, speak as the one who knows. Fall asleep tonight as the word fulfilled, not pleading, not waiting, just being. And if you hear no voice, feel no dream, see no sign, rejoice, because silence too is confirmation. It means nothing more is needed. The seed has taken root. But even this realization prepares you for something more, something few have dared to feel fully. That even beyond manifestation, beyond assumption, beyond the personal dream fulfilled, there is a love so vast, so total, that it swallows the dreamer entirely, and reveals what the dream was always pointing to. And as the awareness of being the Word made flesh begins to settle, like dew upon the inner ground, there arises something even softer, even more sacred, an uncontainable warmth, not born of desire or identity, but of sheer presence. It is love, but not the love you seek, not the love you receive, not the love you receive or give. This love has no object. It flows without direction, without opposite, without beginning. It does not come and go. It is the truth behind every dream, every image, every assumption you have ever formed. It waits, not outside of you, but within you, for the moment when all effort drops, when even fulfillment no longer matters, and all that remains is the awareness that you are loved, not because of what you've become, not because of what you've created, but because of what you've always been. This is what the dream points to, not the thing attained, but the love that has always been there beneath the longing. When God speaks to you in your dream, He is not delivering instruction, He's revealing His nearness, His oneness with you, His total giving of Himself as you. And once you feel this, not think it, not say it, but feel it, everything shifts. You begin to see that every desire was just a thread leading you home. Every revision, every scene of living in the end, every careful assumption, they were all steps back into the arms of this love. It cannot be imagined, but it can be known. It cannot be earned, but it can be received. And it comes not when you finally get it right. It comes when you stop trying to get anything at all. It rushes in through stillness. It enters as you release the dream, not in failure, but in fulfillment. As you surrender the story, not because it didn't matter, but because it's complete. This is the moment when sleep becomes sacred, not because you are shaping something, but because you are being held. And the dream, once a mirror of your thoughts, now becomes a resting place for the soul. You may find yourself in a garden, you may walk through soft fields, or you may simply float in golden quiet, with no form, no name, No need to know. These are not symbols to analyze. These are states of remembrance. For this love speaks no commands. It asks nothing. It simply waits for you to remember that it has always been here, before the desire, before the belief, before even the thought of I am. And now as it fills the space you once used for striving, you find you cannot hold on to your old definitions. They dissolve in its light. You are no longer the one who manifests. You are the one who is. And what flows from this being is effortless. The dreams that once required your careful shaping now arise with ease. The world begins to rearrange itself, not because you demanded it, but because you have returned to the true center. Love moves without force. It magnetizes what matches its tone. It softens all that resists. It draws to itself the likeness of its own vibration. And now that you are dwelling in it, not performing it, not imagining it, but being it, the people, places and things that belong to your higher identity begin to appear, quietly, naturally, without strain. And when they do, you do not reach, you do not cling, you welcome them, but you remain anchored in the source, not the symbol. This is the peace that passes all understanding. It is not built on outer proof. It does not change with circumstance. It is the quiet knowing that you are already whole. Let yourself fall asleep in this peace. Let the dream speak back in the language of wholeness. Let the silence be enough. For now something even finer begins to dawn within. The realization that the God who speaks in your dream is the same one who sleeps in you. And even your dream of separation was only a moment in eternity's embrace, waiting to wait.
And as that eternal embrace begins to reveal its warmth, something impossibly intimate begins to rise within your awareness, not as a thought, not as a message, but as a homecoming. The one you were searching for, the one you called God, the one you hoped would appear in a vision or speak through a sign, has been resting all along in the depth of your own being, breathing you into every moment, waiting for you to stop seeking and simply feel. You have never been apart from the source. The veil was never real. It was made of thoughts, beliefs, roles, assumptions, all dissolvable in a single moment of surrender. The sleeper and the speaker are one. You have never dreamed alone. Every scene, every whisper, every glimmer of divine guidance in your sleep was not a distant God reaching out. It was your own eternal self, speaking from the stillness you carry within, the very essence of you, undivided, wrapped in symbol, woven into dream. And now, as that awareness becomes more than theory, as it begins to feel like remembrance, you no longer chase meaning. You let meaning rise. You no longer ask, what does this dream mean? But rather, what in me has awakened? You begin to live with a sacred softness, not passive, but unshakable. Not because the world is quiet, but because you are, still within, rooted, resting in the one place that has never left you. And from that place, dreams change their nature. You begin to walk through them with recognition. You see not just what they show, but where they come from. You understand that the inner landscape is not just symbolic, it is sacred. It is the garden of the Lord. And you are both gardener and ground. You may enter a scene that once terrified you, but now it no longer grips you. You stand in peace. You bless what arises. You know it is only another mask of yourself, calling to be loved. You may see the face of one you once called enemy, but now something in you smiles, not out of duty, but because the illusion has cracked. You no longer need them to change. You have changed. You may awaken from the dream with no words, no images, only the lingering fragrance of love, and know, without proof, that something deep has shifted. This is what it means to become the dreamer awake. You are no longer reacting to the echoes. You are speaking from the origin. You are no longer waiting for the divine to visit you. You are remembering you are divine, dreaming in form for the joy of awakening. And this awakening is not loud. It is not sudden. It is not marked by thunder or flame. It is quiet. It is soft. It is the hush between breaths, the warmth behind the eyes, the whisper before the dream begins. It is the knowing that needs no evidence. Before Abraham was, I am. Before the body, before the role, before even the name you answer to, there was this being, this light, this silent, unconditioned presence. And it still lives in you now, not behind, not above, but as you. And as you let yourself dissolve into that awareness more and more, especially as you drift into sleep, you carry not a request, but a realization. Not God, come to me, but God dreams as me. The dream becomes clearer, the waking life becomes quieter, the resistance softens, and you begin to live each day as a dream already chosen, each moment an extension of the love you remembered behind the veil. But even this knowing is only the beginning of something vaster. For once you awaken as the dreamer, a new question arises. What happens when you no longer imagine from desire, or even from identity, but from the overflow of divine play itself? When creation becomes expression, not correction. When your dream is no longer a way to become more, but simply a way to shine. And as the realization dawns that you are not here to fix the dream, not here to reach or grasp, but to shine, a different light begins to glow within you. It is not urgent, it is not seeking, it does not speak in the language of getting, it radiates, quietly, constantly, like the sun that rises, not because it must, but because it is. This is the freedom few ever taste, the freedom of the fulfilled, the freedom of the one who imagines, not out of need, but out of joy, who creates, not to correct the past, but to express the infinite now. When imagination is no longer chained to desire, it becomes divine play. You begin to feel the true nature of dreaming, not as escape, but as celebration. You walk through the world as one who remembers that creation is a dance, not a duty, that what you assume is not just law, it is art, sacred art, woven in light, and your dream, whether seen by night or lived by day, becomes your canvas. You are no longer afraid of the dark spaces, for you know they are only empty rooms waiting to be filled with light. You no longer need the dream to prove your worth. Your worth has become the rhythm of your breath. This is the secret the soul keeps hidden until you are still enough to receive it, that the most powerful creations come not from force, not even from focused attention, but from overflow. When the heart is full, it imagines without effort, it assumes beauty because it can, it speaks life without trying to convince, and what flows from this place becomes visible, not through striving, but through surrender. The dream becomes effortless, because the dreamer is no longer bound. And now you begin to notice something new. The world around you reflects not just what you believe, but what you enjoy. Beauty begins to multiply in strange and unexpected ways. Moments of grace unfold without being summoned. Even your dreams at night begin to feel lighter, more playful, more vibrant, as though heaven itself were exploring through you. You may wander through a forest made of light. You may find yourself flying with ease, without asking how. You may hear music you've never known, but somehow always loved. These are not hallucinations, they are gifts from the deeper self. They are expressions of divine imagination flowing freely at last. And you, yes, you are the vessel. This is what the ancient mystics called the joy of being, the life more abundant, the living temple, the river of life, not something to earn, not something to master, something to become aware of. Delight thyself in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart, not by chasing them, but by delighting. By resting in the sweetness of being, and allowing that delight to choose what comes, you begin to dream less for what you think you need, and more from who you truly are. You begin to imagine not just outcomes, but atmospheres, tones of love, layers of light, states of soul, that ripple outward, and shape everything in silence. You may find yourself drifting to sleep, not with a request, but with a smile, not trying to manifest, but simply letting your breath return to joy. And even this holy delight, has more to reveal. For once you've remembered who you are, and once you've begun to create from love, there comes one final threshold, the sweetest of all, when even the dream dissolves, and all that's left is being, timeless, desireless, one with all, not the dreamer creating, but the dreamer resting in God. And as joy begins to overflow into silence, as even the beautiful dream no longer holds the weight of your focus, a deeper surrender calls to you, not down, not forward, but inward, gently, like the tide returning to its origin. You are no longer the dreamer creating with purpose. You are the one who rests before creation ever began, not the light shining, but the stillness out of which light is born. This is the peace that neither dream nor waking can give you, for it belongs to neither. It is not made, it is remembered. It is not felt as emotion, but as presence, pure, unshaped, and eternal. You are not imagining now. You are not revising. You are not assuming anything at all. You are simply being. The one who desired has been embraced. The one who imagined has been fulfilled. The one who received has been dissolved into the source from which all things rise. And that source is you, no longer clothed in name, or wish or role. You are as you were in the beginning, formless, boundless, resting in the bosom of God, who is not other, but awareness itself. In this place,
there is no effort,
no separation, no need to become. There is no past to revise, no future to shape. Only now, only presence. You are not asleep.
yet not quite awake, not dreaming, yet not empty. You have entered the temple of holy stillness, where God speaks not in symbol, but in silence, not in dreams, but in being. And what is spoken here is not received by ears, but by identity itself. This is why the mystics called it union, the sacred marriage, the place where all duality fades, and only one remains. You do not watch yourself here. You are not aware of the presence. You are the presence. And in this sacred absorption, even the desire for dreams dissolves, because all is known, all is held, all is now. You do not need to hold an image. You do not need to think the end. You have become the end. And in this quiet, something opens within, not a voice, not a vision, but a divine stillness, deeper than thought. You remember, not with mind, but with being. You remember what it feels like to be without need. You remember what it is to be before the world was formed. You remember that the universe is not out there. It rises from here, from this stillness behind your breath. You are not in the dream is in you. You are not in the body is in you. You are not in time moves through you, like waves through open space, seen for a moment, then gone. And yet from this stillness, everything beautiful flows, not by your command, but by your surrender. The perfect creation is born, not of effort, but of alignment, with what already is. You fall asleep here, not into unconsciousness, but into pure awareness, without edge. And when the dream returns, and it will come softly, draped in light, without urgency. It will not instruct, it will reflect, it will not test, it will confirm, for you have touched the sacred root, and now every branch bends toward you in silent harmony. And the question that once haunted the soul, will it happen, has become irrelevant. There is no longer any it, only this, only the sacred unfolding of the self, forever known, forever held. And yet even this is not the end, for just as the wave returns to the sea returns to the sky, and the sky breathes out a new world, you too shall rise again from this stillness, carrying with you a gentleness that reimagines all things, not from lack, not from desire, but from grace itself, and the divine pleasure of dreaming once more. And as the stillness begins to shimmer with the gentle stirrings of new life, a subtle joy begins to rise, not the joy of having received, but the joy of simply being again. From the depths of the formless, the self begins to take shape once more, not as a burden, not as a role, but as a playful expression of the infinite. You awaken, not because you lacked anything in the silence, but because love longs to give itself form, and that form is you. This is the divine rhythm, rest and radiance, stillness and shaping, silence and sound. You do not leave the silence, you bring it with you into the dream. And now when you imagine, you do so from peace. When you assume, it is not to escape, but to celebrate. When you dream, you do not say, you offer. You begin to imagine again, not as the one in need, but as the one overflowing. You let yourself be moved by beauty, not strategy. You choose scenes not to fix life, but to expand it. You speak inwardly, not to convince the subconscious, but because your soul delights in creation. This is the freedom reserved for those who have remembered who they are. You walk through waking life lightly now, like one gliding through a dream they've already made peace with. You bless without effort. You assume the best, not because it is useful, but because it is true. You choose love, not to attract anything, but because it is your nature. And your dreams at night begin to sing with this same ease. They speak now not in riddles, but in resonance. You may find yourself walking through luminous landscapes, where nothing is said, yet everything is understood. You may dream of holding a child who is not yours, yet feel a love more vast than the mind can comprehend. You may see no images at all, but wake with a softness in your chest that words cannot explain. The dream is no longer separate. It is your reflection, your conversation with God in the language of symbol and feeling, and you trust it now, not as prophecy, but as poetry. You let it guide you gently, not bind you. You receive its wisdom, without needing to decipher, because you know the voice that speaks within it is your own, and also more than your own. You are walking now, in the harmony between dreaming and being. You move through both worlds, with the same breath, the same quiet knowing. And this is when the miracles begin to multiply, not because you chase them, but because they are drawn to the one who no longer waits, the one who is not asked for signs, but becomes one. You do not need to explain this state. You cannot teach it with words, but your very presence becomes transmission. Your stillness becomes healing. Your joy becomes a mirror for others to remember what they too have forgotten. And this too is a form of dreaming, holy dreaming, not for yourself alone, but for the world, to see others as whole when they forget, to imagine peace where there is confusion, to assume light where others can only see shadow. You dream now not to survive, but to serve, not from obligation, but from the ease of overflow. You become the dream through which God remembers the world. And yet, in the quiet corners of night, when you return to the stillness again, there will be one final question that floats just beneath the silence, unspoken, unprovoked, but eternally alive. If all things are possible, what will you dream now, simply for the joy of watching love become visible? And as that sacred question rises from the hush, if all things are possible, what will you dream now? You do not rush to answer. You let the question breathe. You let it float across the still waters of your awareness, like a feather on calm seas. For this is not the question of the seeker. It is the invitation of the beloved, the voice of divine freedom asking you not what you lack, but what you now long to express, not from need, but from love. There is no pressure here, no urgency, only the quiet wonder of possibility unfolding itself for the sheer joy of being seen. This is the point where assumption becomes art, where creation is no longer tethered to outcome, but flows as the natural rhythm of a soul at peace with itself. And you begin to realize, your next dream need not be big to be holy. It need not dazzle the world. It need only move you, stir you gently, invite you into deeper beauty. For God does not measure dreams in size. God moves through feeling, through sincerity, through the sacred simplicity of what delights your inner being. And so you ask not, what should I want, but what would it feel like to create from overflow? Perhaps it is the feeling of laughter shared before sleep, the warmth of a hand held in silence, the quiet arrival of a letter long overdue, the moment you walk into a room and feel you have always belonged. These are not small. These are the brushstrokes of heaven. You are not here to impress the world. You are here to reflect the infinite. And the infinite needs no spectacle to shine. It only asks, will you let joy lead? And when joy leads, your assumptions change. You stop imagining out of urgency, and start imagining for the pleasure of creation itself. You stop asking for things to change, so you can feel better, and start feeling better as your creative act. You stop reacting to what is, and begin radiating what is becoming, because it has already become within you. This is the return to innocence, to the pure dreamer, the holy child within, unburdened by doubt, untouched by the lie of limitation. And when that inner child dreams, the dream is simple, but powerful, because it comes from a state beyond resistance. You may find yourself lying down, to sleep not with effort, but with ease, not trying to impress the subconscious, but entrusting your state to it, knowing that what is accepted with joy is always returned in form. You close your eyes, and feel the dream, not as a command to the universe, but as a song, a silent melody hummed beneath the surface of thought, and that song becomes the blueprint. The dream becomes the prayer, and the prayer is already answered the moment it is sung with sincerity. You do not need to force belief. You do not need to chant your way to certainty. You need only surrender into the tone of having, into the naturalness of fulfillment. You are not waiting for it to happen. You are letting it be true now. And the dream that rises from that state, whether in the night or in the daylight of your walk, will carry the fragrance of ease. The person you become in the dream will not be grasping, they will be glowing. The place you enter will not be foreign, it will feel like home. And when you awaken, it will be with a softness in your chest, the unmistakable feeling that God has whispered something into your spirit, and your life will quietly begin to shape itself around that whisper. This is not magic, it is law, the law of assumption, breathed through joy, fulfilled through rest. But even as this joy deepens and dreams unfold like petals in the soul, there remains one final remembrance, the sacred truth that even the most beautiful dream is not the destination, but the doorway to the eternal now, where all things are complete, and you are already whole. And as the joy of the dream begins to bloom with such gentleness, it invites you beyond the dream itself, beyond the form it takes, beyond the outcome it promises. For even the most radiant vision, when truly fulfilled, points not to the thing attained, but to the stillness that holds it all. You begin to see, the dream is not the end, it is the veil, the bridge, the momentary garment of an eternal presence whispering beneath it all, I am here. And it is here, in the resting place beneath desire, that true wholeness is remembered. Not the wholeness that comes when everything is finally right, but the wholeness that was never lost to begin begin with. The wholeness that doesn't require an answer. The wholeness that simply is. You close your eyes. Not to escape, but to return. You return to the breath before the image, the space before the scene, the presence before the dream. And you feel it now, not as something you must generate, but as something that has always been waiting. Quiet, complete, entirely untouched by circumstance. This is the peace that is not born of dreams fulfilled, but of identity remembered. And this identity is not a role, it is not even a state, it is the root of all states, the open sky beneath all clouds. It cannot be imagined, it cannot be improved, it simply is. I and my Father are one, not two things reconciled, one thing revealed, not a self reaching for God, but God remembering itself as you. And when this remembrance arrives, the dream no longer feels like something to hold on to. It becomes the wave rising and falling within the sea. It comes and goes in beauty, but you are the sea. You carry your desires still, but loosely, lightly, with reverence, not with weight. You imagine with clarity, but no longer with tension. You assume with precision, but not to prove anything, because you know that no manifestation, no sign, no miracle can add anything to the truth of what already is. You are already the beloved. You are already the fullness. You are already the one God speaks through, whether in symbol or in silence. And so when you lay down to sleep, you do so not to ask, not to fix, but to rest in what has always been true, I am. And if a dream comes, you smile. If none comes, you rest all the same, because the stillness you now carry into the night does not need confirmation. It is confirmation. You let the body soften. You let the inner world open. You speak not to the subconscious, but as the subconscious. You do not send a message. You are the message. And the life that unfolds from this posture, the quiet mornings, the whispered synchronicities, the ease of paths made straight, these are not rewards, they are echoes. The outward vibration of the inner knowing, I lack nothing. This is the secret the world never teaches, that nothing you long for is missing. It is only waiting to be recognized in the stillness between assumptions. And when you stop trying to become, and instead dwell in the one who already is, everything finds you, not because you summoned it, but because you matched it. You live now from the eternal now, where all things are finished, and you are only ever remembering what you have already been given. And yet in this place of fullness, there is still something tender that remains, the gentle invitation to return to the dream again, but not as the seeker, as the artist, as the joyful divine, painting light into form simply because you can.
And as you return to the dream, not to get, but to give, not to possess, but to play, the burden lifts entirely. You are not manifesting to complete yourself. You are expressing wholeness through the sacred art of assumption. Every scene you select, every feeling you savor, becomes a brushstroke of divine delight. You no longer beg reality to change. You compose it as music for the joy of hearing its echo in the chambers of your world. There is no longer fear of delay, no clinging to outcomes, because you have touched the place within where all things are already yours. You rest in that holy assurance, all that the Father hath is mine, and because it is already yours, you need not grasp, you need only remember. And how do you remember? Not with effort, with feeling. You slip gently into the sensation of being, not reaching for the dream, but becoming it, feeling it not as future, but as now, not as hope, but as identity. You let the mood of fulfillment wrap around you like night air on still water. You let it sink into your breath, into your silence. You carry no doubt, because doubt has no ground in the one who is. You are not preparing for a better life. You are living from it. And this is where God speaks, not as a booming voice from clouds, not as thunder in the night, but as the subtle shift in your being when you say yes to the reality already prepared for you. You walk through your day with this soft assumption. It is done. You do not chase signs. You do not scan for clues. You simply remain in the state, and the world rearranges itself in quiet obedience to your inner world. The dream at night becomes confirmation, not instruction. It reflects what you have claimed in the silence of your own self-knowing. You see glimpses of scenes unfolding before they arrive. You receive impressions, not of what will be, but of what already is in the invisible. And you begin to trust this rhythm. You dream it, you feel it, you rest in it, and it appears, sometimes without effort, sometimes without logic, sometimes in ways that no man could have predicted, but always, always, with the fragrance of grace, because grace is the law in operation through love. It does not give to the deserving. It gives to the one who assumes. And so you begin to dream more freely. You ask larger things of yourself, not from need, but from joy. You walk into the chamber of the Most High within your soul, and select what delights you, like one gathering flowers in a garden that has no end. And with every assumption you embody, the garden grows. You are not waiting for your dream life to begin. You are living as the dreamer whose life is the dream, and whose dream is real. What once seemed distant now feels native. What once felt unreachable now feels obvious, because you no longer confuse the outer with the cause. You know where reality begins, and it begins in you. Before they call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear. So you do not wait, you do not hope, you embody. You walk as one who has already been spoken to. You sleep as one who is already held, and you rise each morning not to get, but to give thanks, not because it is coming, but because you already carry it, and your world has no choice but to bloom around your knowing. And still, one question lingers, not to disturb your peace, but to deepen it. If this is what happens when you assume joyfully, what becomes possible when you assume from the fullness of love itself? And as that question echoes softly through your being, what becomes possible when you assume from the fullness of love itself? The very air around your awareness begins to shift. For this is not a question the intellect can answer. It is a door the heart alone may walk through. A quiet veil parts, and suddenly you are no longer imagining for the self alone. You are imagining from the self that includes all. It no longer matters if the dream is for you or for another, because there is no other. There is only one being, one life, one light expressing itself in endless form. You begin to see this clearly, not as philosophy, but as a living presence. The face of the stranger on the street, the voice of the child in the hallway, the ache of someone else's longing. These are not separate from you. They are your own being, whispering through mirrored form. And so the way you imagine changes again. You no longer ask only, what do I desire? You begin to wonder, what does love long to express through me? Love does not ask for proof. Love does not calculate results. Love simply gives, and in the giving it knows its own abundance. You may find yourself assuming peace for someone in pain, not to rescue them, but because you know they are already whole beneath the appearance. You hold the image of their healing in your heart, not with urgency, but with calm certainty, as though God has already finished the work, and you are only beholding it. You may begin to revise moments, not just for your own memory, but for the liberation of all who were touched by them. You imagine forgiveness into scenes long past. You soften entire histories in the quiet chambers of your mind, not to change the past, but to free the soul from the illusion that time ever held it captive. This is not imagination as escape. This is imagination as redemption. You are restoring Eden with every thought, and it happens so gently, so humbly, so invisibly, that you may forget to marvel at it. But heaven marvels, for as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. And you are now thinking from love, not about love. You are being the Word made flesh. This is when dreams cease to be personal ambitions and become divine assignments. You wake from the night not just with symbols, but with instructions, with quiet guidance, with impressions so subtle, they feel like your own thoughts, yet when followed, they unfold the most improbable beauty. And still it does not feel dramatic. It feels natural. It feels like breathing. You are not waiting for signs. You are becoming one. You walk into a room, and the atmosphere changes, not because you try, but because you carry the state. You speak a word, and hearts are softened, not because of eloquence, but because of the authority of your assumption. You assume peace, and peace appears. You assume reconciliation, and bridges are mended. You assume abundance, and others begin to prosper in your presence. You are no longer a dreamer seeking personal manifestation. You are a vessel of restoration, and yet nothing is lost in this expansion. Your own dreams remain, more alive, more effortless, more radiant than ever, because now they are not bound by ego. They are rooted in love. You assume them lightly, joyfully, as one paints with sunlit color across the canvas of consciousness. There is no guilt, no hesitation, because you know you are not taking from life, you are revealing it. This is the divine paradox. The more selfless your dreaming becomes, the more complete your fulfillment. For when you dream from the fullness of love, you are no longer imagining toward God, you are imagining as God. And that sacred realization opens one more mystery, the most tender of all. What if your entire life has been God's dream, and you are just now beginning to awaken inside it? And if your life is God's dream, then every detail, every seeming detour, every joy, every ache, has not been random, but poetic, not chaotic, but chosen. Each thread in the tapestry of your becoming has been woven by the dreaming mind of God, which is your own imagination. And now something within you begins to stir, as if the dreamer is slowly awakening inside the dream, not to reject it, but to shape it from within. You begin to look at your own history with different eyes, not with regret, not with judgment, but with reverence. You see how even the shadows served the light, how even the silence was speaking, how even the delays were preparing your capacity to receive, not just things, but truth. There is a holiness in every moment now. The mundane begins to shimmer. You are no longer looking to escape your current scene. You are transfiguring it. Because you see now, it is not the scene that creates the state. It is the state that casts the scene. You shift within, and the world bends without. You assume peace, and conversations soften. You assume love, and the mirror brightens. You assume provision, and doors appear where none existed. And this begins to feel like breathing, natural, effortless, holy. You realize you do not need to move mountains by force. You let them move by faith. You do not command the sea to part. You walk into it as if it already has, and it makes way. The Red Sea does not part for the one who doubts. It parts for the one who walks. This is what it means to live the dream awake. You are no longer trying to wake up from the dream of life. You are waking up within it, and in doing so you begin to dream it deliberately, lovingly, consciously. And now the dreams of the night no longer feel separate from the life you live by day. They blend, they speak in tandem, they echo each other. For what you accept in imagination, especially as you fall into sleep, is impressed upon the depths of the self, and takes form in both inner vision and outer experience. You begin to notice how the subconscious whispers in symbols. It does not argue, it does not reason, it accepts, it mirrors, it amplifies. And in your stillness you realize you can speak to it clearly, not with words, but with feeling. You do not say, "I will have this." You feel it is done. You do not beg for healing. You feel the joy of already being whole. You do not visualize from separation. You assume the tone of fulfillment. And as this becomes your nightly ritual, not effort, but devotion, you begin to notice a presence stirring beneath the dream, a voice not heard with ears, but known with being. It does not startle, it does not command, it reveals. Sometimes it speaks in light, sometimes in story, sometimes in pure knowing that floods your chest with clarity the moment you open your eyes. This is not the voice of another, it is your own voice remembered, and it tells you what to let go of, what to return to, what to create, not in riddles, but in resonance, not in noise, but in the hush that follows trust. You awaken from such dreams not frantic to interpret, but humbled by the grace of being guided from within. For you now understand the language of God is not linear, it is symbolic, emotional, dimensional. It is felt, not decoded. And so you no longer chase meaning, you let meaning rise. You no longer ask, what does this mean, but what does this invite me to feel is true now? Because in the end, the dream was never to give you knowledge, it was always to restore your knowing. And just as this realization settles into the quiet of your spirit, something deeper begins to emerge, a subtle stirring beneath all assumption, all dreaming, all creating, the faint but unmistakable remembrance that even the one who dreams must eventually dissolve into the one who is. And as that final veil trembles, the veil between the dreamer and the I am, you begin to feel something holy and formless, something not held in image or name, a deep breath beneath all identities, a stillness too wide to belong to a single self. This is not the end of dreaming, it is the end of ownership of the dream. You are not the one who imagines, you are imagination itself. You are not the one who believes, you are belief clothed in flesh. And in that realization, all striving falls away, not in despair, but in reverence. You become the awareness that includes the dreamed and the dreamer. You no longer seek messages from God as something sent. You feel yourself as the medium through which God expresses, as the dream through which God remembers. And the dreams that come now carry no anxiety. They arrive with the hush of sacred knowing, no effort to decode them, no fear of misunderstanding, only the deep peace of union, of resonance, of divine rhythm,
Flowing is your breath, your rest, your life. You no longer ask what the dream means. You ask what it feels like to be God becoming what you have seen, and even that question dissolves eventually into stillness. There are nights now where you don't dream at all, not in images, not in parables, but in pure being. You descend into sleep not as a personality, but as presence. You let go of the one who needs, the one who seeks, the one who desires, and you rest as the one who is. And from that silence, miracles arise, not because you asked, because you became. You became the one who no longer fears delay, for there is no delay in eternity. You became the one who no longer needs signs, for there is nothing outside to confirm what you already are. You became the one who no longer tries to create, because creation has been finished from the foundation of the world, and you are simply selecting from its infinite storehouse, by the vibration of your inner state. And so you rest, night after night, in that holy place between thought and form, that sacred garden, where feeling becomes flesh, and the whisper of I am becomes the world. You no longer try to hold on to what you saw in the dream. You know that if it touched your spirit, it will form. If it stirred your heart, it already lives in the unseen. If it drew tears to your eyes, it is yours beyond time. And what once felt like a whisper from beyond, now feels like the very echo of yourself. You understand now why Jacob, after wrestling with the angel of his own inner being, said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not." For you too have awakened to the truth, that God was never separate. The voice in the dream was never distant. The handwriting visions in your sleep was always your own. This is the mystery so few dare to fully believe, that the dream of your heart is not a future possibility. It is a present identity, waiting for your assumption to quicken it into sight. And the final act of faith is to release even the dream itself, not from doubt, but from worship, not from indifference, but from union. You are no longer asking to be given, you are asking to be used. You are no longer praying for outcomes, you are praying to become the portal through which God may pour more of himself into the world. And as that prayer settles beneath language, beneath desire, beneath even intention, a still voice returns, not from above, but from within. And it says, the dream is not separate from me, it is how I have chosen to remember myself in you. Which leads only to one more invitation, one so gentle, yet so boundless, it cannot be ignored. What would it feel like to live every waking moment as the answer to your own prayer? And what would it feel like to live as the answer, no longer searching, no longer rehearsing the lack, but breathing as the fulfillment itself? There is a kind of silence that follows such a question, a sacred hush, as if even your thoughts bow in reverence before what's noting, because to live as the answer is not to pretend, it is to remember. You remember that nothing you seek is outside of you, not love, not guidance, not healing, not purpose. All of it lives within the state you now dare to enter, not with effort, but with rest. For rest is the highest act of faith. Rest says, it is done. Rest closes the book and falls asleep, knowing the story ends in glory. And as you rest, both in sleep and in waking, the dream becomes clearer, not louder, not brighter, but truer. It no longer flashes in mystery, it flows as peace. The voice of God does not compete for your attention, it waits until you are quiet enough to hear your own heartbeat, and then speaks in rhythm with it. You realize now, the voice has never been far, it has always been as near as your breath, as constant as your being. It was only the noise of trying that made it hard to hear, trying to fix, trying to manifest, trying to force, trying to control. But the kingdom does not come by observation, it does not arrive by effort. Behold, the kingdom of God is within you, not a destination, a dimension, and you enter that dimension every time you surrender into the end, into the feeling that it is already done, that there is nothing left to fix, nowhere left to go, nothing more to become, only something to be. To live as the answer is to stop praying for peace, and walk as peace, to stop asking for signs, and breathe as the sign, to stop seeking confirmation and move as the fulfilled word. You no longer react to the old shadows, you remember the truth, and the truth remakes the image. You are not shaping life from the outside in, you are selecting from the infinite storehouse of the eternal now, and you select not with willpower, but with the vibration of your resting state. If you assume joy, joy must reflect. If you fall asleep in love, love must echo. If you remember your oneness with God before your eyes close, then your dream must speak with his voice, and when it does, you will know it, not by thunder or spectacle, but by the stillness it leaves behind, a knowing beyond language, a peace that cannot be explained, and does not need to be. You will awaken with tears, and not know why, or with laughter that leaves you lighter than air, or with a phrase, a symbol, a presence that lingers all day, not haunting but healing. You will be given not just signs, but alignments, not just meanings, but instructions, and still it will feel natural, organic, as if the most mystical thing in the world is also the most ordinary, because it is. To hear from God in your dream is not rare, it is your birthright. To be led from within is not reserved for saints or sages, it is how life was always meant to unfold, from seed to bloom, from word to flesh, from assumption to form. And now something deeper begins to stir, a question that does not come from lack, but from abundance, not from desperation, but from devotion, a question not of how to receive, but who you are when you already have, and what happens to the world when you live from that place, when your dream is no longer about what you can get, but about what you are here to embody. What happens when your sleep becomes the temple, and your waking the offering, and what happens, beloved, when your life itself becomes the dream God is having through you, not to test you, but to reveal you, not to bind you, but to birth you into your eternal name. You begin to see all of it differently, not just the dreams of the night, but the dream of day, the dream called waking. Every face becomes a mirror, every moment becomes a message, every breath becomes a prayer. You walk through the world, not as someone trying to make things happen, but as one through whom things already are. You speak not to convince, but to confirm what is already known in silence. You move through time gently, with no rush, because you know now, eternity has no clocks, and when you sleep, it is not escape, it is return. You return not just to your bed, but to your source, not just to rest, but to recalibration, a sacred recalibration, into the state of being where all is one, and all is done. You no longer fall asleep hoping for answers, you fall asleep embodying them. You no longer drift off in longing, but in the holy hush of arrival. And yes, God speaks. God speaks not in the way the world expects, but in the only way that truly transforms, not from without, but from within. A dream may come tonight, not with thunder, not with flame, but with the softness of light on still water. It may carry no words, yet you will awaken changed. It may show you a garden, a door, a familiar hand, and though the image fades, the imprint will remain, a seal upon your heart. For now you understand what it means when the prophet wrote, "I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams." Not someday, not if you are worthy, but now, because you are. The dream is not a random flicker of mind, it is the burning bush of your soul, and when you approach it with reverence, with surrender, with the feeling of already having what you once begged for, you find the ground beneath you is holy. You find yourself barefoot before the infinite. You find the voice you sought was never in the thunder, never in the whirlwind, but in the still small echo that says, "You and I are one." So tonight, as your head meets the pillow, you enter not into unconsciousness, but into creation. You loosen the garments of fear and wear instead the robe of fulfillment. You do not ask for light, you become the light. You do not knock to enter, you remember you are already inside. And in that sacred space, beyond form, beyond thought, beyond even self, the word becomes flesh, again, through you. Let the dream come, let the silence speak, let the vision rise from the deep, and show you what you are. You do not need to understand it, you only need to receive it, for God will speak to you in your dream. If you remember before the first breath of sleep, you are already the answer whispered into the dark.